TasksUs On Air presents CX plus U.
Hey there, welcoming you to another edition of CX plus U, the most ridiculously refreshing podcast on all things to do with outsourcing that you're going to hear today. And it is a pleasure to have you back. Not just you, actually, it's a pleasure to have you back. Max, my colleague across the seas in Croatia. How you doing, Max? You okay?
Hey Nathan, good morning. Doing great, and looking forward to having another discussion, episode 3, summarizing some of the stuff we already talked, and then with another big topic, recruitment and retention.
Yeah, it's going to be sad to say goodbye. I've really enjoyed our chats, and I hope the listeners have too. But I think we finish on a really interesting subject today, and one that's going to be on the forefront of the minds of, I know, all our existing partners, but all businesses out there, in this current landscape. And that subject, without further ado, is recruitment and retention. So how can businesses attract? I mean, it's an age-old question, right? How do you attract the best staff? And then once you've got the best staff and you've invested lots and lots of money in ensuring that they can do the job well, how do you keep them? But I would say the difference at the moment is that, certainly in my very short lifetime, as you know, I'm a very, very, very young man. How employees have an upper hand really at the moment. It's a job seekers market out there, like one that I've not seen it this strong before. So it's harder than ever, and customer service, as a career, is notoriously difficult when it comes to things like attrition, even in sort of simpler times, let's say. So I think there's a lot to really talk about here today, and hopefully we can deliver a lot of value for the listeners out there.
Yeah, so definitely. I see this more and more, in the business world, wherever you go, not just our customer service industry, but, really for us, the name of the game for the last 3 years was recruitment and sourcing, and really, talent. As you said, finding the best people, and then, how to keep them. Because also, as you mentioned, attrition, it's a really big topic in our industry. Obviously, you attract the talent, you train the right people, they're, delivering on certain projects, supporting the products and services of our customers. And, every time someone leaves the company, you bring on a new person on board, and there's this, time frame that the person goes through, this learning curve, and it's a constant investment. But, if you're constantly having to replace people, then basically you're always having a, good percentage of people providing services that aren't on the highest level of quality, aren't on the highest level of knowledge. And, customers definitely sense this. So you really want to focus on, keeping the right talent, because it's costly if you don't, even simply from a financial perspective.
Well, do you know what, Max? I know that you have been sort of in past work over at the TasksUs operation in Croatia with recruitment, so I can actually feel the slight twinge of pain in your voice as you recount some of those stories, and I know other listeners will be able to really relate to that. I guess where we should start, I feel, is where the journey starts, and that often is, well, it always is really, the recruitment of the teams that you're looking to build. As I say, you've been really involved in a lot of the recruitment for customer support teammates in Croatia. We were talking about this before, right, and thinking, what are you really looking to do as a recruiter? Is it all about sort of going out into the market, marketing yourself as hard as you can in the right places? I mean, there is an element of that, but I think we both agreed really that the easiest way, and the way that TasksUs have always tended to do it, is to become really that kind of paragon of good employment in the market through word of mouth more than anything. I mean, a statistic that I think all businesses should sort of be aware of is, how many of your team come from word of mouth referrals from your existing employees, right? And that comes from, I'm going to sound like a UK politician looking for re-election at the moment, but I'm going to say a word 3 times: culture, culture, culture. Now, how important, on the ground, working actually within those campaigns, is this word culture when looking to attract employees, for our client campaigns?
Yeah, so definitely. Culture was, a huge, maybe even like the core piece of the puzzle of, I wouldn't want to say solving because you're dealing with recruitment and retention challenges every day, but a key piece, definitely culture. And one more topic, which I would also introduce, work from home. This enabled us, to spread out not only in Croatia where we had sites and a work from home operation, but to the entire region, north, east, and south from here, basically the Balkans, the CE region. So that was also a huge one for us. So beginning of this period, as I mentioned, last 3 years, the name of the game for us was recruitment and retention of talent. We have a couple teammates in Serbia, a couple teammates in Bosnia, and the most of the company is in Croatia. Now we are in front of this exponential growth, and our clients are looking for us to improve on our team sizes, services we offer, different lines of businesses. So we need great people for this. Obviously, going into a new market, it's an entirely different story. So what we did is first we talked to our existing teammates in Serbia, asking them, guys, what can we do to improve? What do you like about us? And simply listening to them, collecting this feedback was really valuable for us to implement in the strategy of recruiting in these markets because it's a different culture. And that's simply talking to them what happens, and in combination of having these digital recruitment campaigns and so on, we realized in our recruitment funnels we had a higher and higher percentage of teammates who came to us by referrals. So simply, talking to your existing teammates on on trying to understand why they work here, why they like it, and getting them to open up about what can be improved. Simply that brought a lot to what you said, word of mouth, people coming to us. And then, of course, you try to collect this feedback. You ask them for ESAT surveys, ENPSs, which is, I think, the most important indicator if you're trying to recruit by word of mouth and by referrals.
I'm just going to hone in on one word. Sorry, I'm going to hone in one word you said there, Max, because sort of recruitment is as much about talking to the market as listening to the market, and that applies doubly for sort of company culture and understanding, how to be, as we've said, that kind of beacon of employment within any area. And you talked about listening. So at TasksUs, we consistently all the way through the year have employee satisfaction surveys, and there's a real focus on listening to our existing employees, our existing teammates, to understand and help us drive our business in the direction that is not only going to make life better for them and more enjoyable for everyone within the business, but also to attract and welcome in new talent. So listening and understanding, I'd say, are two important points. And I'd like to just, we were talking before this podcast, and you recounted, a really interesting story that involved one of our founders, Jasper, and also the CEO of Halu, which is obviously the business in Croatia that TasksUs acquired. It was a story about how, really listening and understanding your employees' priorities, understanding what's important to your employees rather than what you as a business or you as an owner or a founder or whatever think is important. And I think this story really sort of encapsulated that. Would you mind sharing it with us now?
Yeah, I was lucky and had the opportunity to witness. It was the initial meeting when Dom and Jasper met for the first time. Simply, talking, exchanging thoughts, and seeing if partnering up is something that makes sense for their companies. So, from Dom's point of view, he always has this saying, great customer support cannot be faked. And, it really makes sense when you think about it. Someone who is not motivated, who's not satisfied with his job on an everyday basis, is not going to be able to transfer this energy to end customers, on a daily basis, repetitive time. And obviously, if you're doing a good job, if you have a great culture, and, if you ensure that your employees are constantly, satisfied, motivated, that their feedback is heard, that, and also that they see that they have a career opportunity, a growth path, and so on. And then Jasper, he came back with a pretty cool story. He completely obviously understood Dom, and from their perspective, if you have a great culture, it solves recruitment, retention, motivated employees, and so on. And Jasper came back to him with how basically when they started in the Philippines, we play sports together and so on. And what they did but what is this culture? So they measured it. And the first time they actually got the results back, I think they had like a ENPS score of something around 20 or maybe even below. It was a cold shower. It was a shock to them because they thought they were doing an amazing job around culture. So they basically digest everything and see where they can improve. And dating to today, what they did to improve on this, it was, it doesn't only start at, it's not only, obviously it starts from the top, but you need to transfer this culture all the way down. So what they did to get their leadership on board was tying performances and KPIs of management directly to the ENPS and ESAT scores of the teammates. And then what you do on top of that is you ask them for feedback constantly, which is, why Jasper and Bryce till today still have, their emails open to the entire company, constantly asking them for advice and where to improve. So it's a top way down, but basically it's a closed feedback loop because you really need this feedback. And it's not easy getting someone to, fully opening up to you on what you can do to improve. And then basically you constantly listen to your people and, try with new initiatives.
It's an old saying, but you've got two ears and one mouth, and I think that goes double for when you're looking to retain staff. If you're not listening to them, then you're gonna see attrition further down the line. I'd like to sort of focus in on attrition. Yeah, I'd like to focus in on attrition here because that is really, whether a business understands it or not, and I know a lot of our clients really do. It is one of the greatest costs and most disruptive things that can happen within a business. I was reading just before we came online today. Actually, I was looking at some sort of facts and figures around attrition, and a book about keeping the people who keep you in business by Lee Branham was talking about the actual costs of losing an employee. And I know I've heard it before, but I think this statistic it just really hits home. The cost of losing an employee can range from 25% to 200% of that employee's salary. Now, it's a massive cost that when you think about it. But what really strikes me there is the issue is not just that cost on its own. It's the elements that cause even more disruption and more damage potentially in the long term. Which is, yes, you will potentially lose customers, you will potentially lose revenue. Ramp up time for a new employee to be as productive as a tenured employee. That in itself is part of that cost. But that staff morale, the cohesiveness of a group, I think is one of the sort of most damaging elements. And what I guess I'd like to deliver today on this podcast is maybe the reasons behind, but also how, as a customer support operation like TasksUs, particularly in Croatia, because that's where we're focused today, how we're solving and things for our listeners to think about. We talk about attracting and retaining employees, and one of the biggest questions today that probably wasn't around 3 years ago, certainly wasn't around 3 years ago, was this question on work from home, hybrid working. It's a hot topic. In fact, actually, Max, we've had our first ever listener call in with a question. So here, first time caller, long time listener, Mr. E. Musk has got in touch with us here at TasksUs Plus You. And he wants us to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of hybrid working and the effect that it can have. I know he's had some issues deciding on whether to work from the office or work from home for his employees. It's something in Croatia that you guys do well and do a lot of. So I'd like for you to maybe sort of share some of your learnings with our listeners now, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Definitely, and it doesn't often go hand in hand one with the other. So, obviously, we wouldn't be here today if we didn't have the benefit of working from home for our employees, but also for our clients, because it's the difference between having a site and being able to recruit from just a certain city or from an entire region. The recruitment scope is much wider, and I'm not going to repeat myself because obviously we talked about this, but what's happening nowadays is in competitive markets, as we talked, I'm shopping online and the competitor is just one tab away. It's the same in recruitment. So, someone who's looking for a job in customer service, speaks well German, the competition is just one tab away, and basically everyone is offering work from home. So it's kind of becoming a standard and something that employees are asking as a foundation of even starting thinking about having a working relationship with you. So it's something you have to be able to offer by default. Obviously, there are some cases where it's mandatory and it's really better for teams to work on site. But generally speaking, work from home is a huge benefit and a standard in today's world, but also a huge, I'd say, even need for us and for our clients in order to be able to attract the best possible talent. So
can I just test you there, Max? I hear you say it's a huge benefit, and it gives you that sort of competitive edge that we talked about earlier. A lot of employees expect it, or they will look for it. But we focused a lot on culture early on in this discussion. I think when I talk to a lot of my clients out there or contacts, one of the issues that they may have with regards to work from home is how can you build a culture that breeds, conscientiousness, productivity, employee well-being, when all of your employees are working from home and are never in the office together, or rarely in the office together. How do you guys do it?
Yeah. So for us, this was one of the largest challenges that we faced. Obviously, when we started, we were all on site. We were a small, happy company. The top level management, was on a daily basis hanging out and talking to teammates. So somehow culture and energy transfer, and you're having a great environment happens by default. Now, what happens to us is, when everyone switched to work from home mode, how do you keep this? Because you're not spending the same time, mingling, talking, listening to one another and so on. So for us, this was, simple, tips and tricks that you do and implement from, we had coffee break rooms that were open, basically 24/7. When you're working, you go on a break, you jump into this kind of Zoom room with other people and, simply mingle. Having after work activities like pub quizzes, having various speakers coming and sharing their knowledge which are open to the entire company, offering, additional benefits such as quarterly or once in a year team meetups that you host and bring everyone together to physically meet. Having more entire team sessions where people talk to each other that's work related but not work related. And this basically resulted this summer. We had a couple of teams that met out of work on their own. They never seen each other in person. They've been working in the same team for a year. And, obviously summer, everyone in Croatia and the region travels to the seaside, and they were organizing meetups during their vacation days. And this is what happened as a result. The teammates were starting to transfer this culture back, and then we actually learned from them. So, as I mentioned, a couple of examples that you can do, but it really is a challenge. I'm not saying we figured it out, but an important thing is to constantly listen to them. What can we do a better job that you guys feel more connected? And for us, it was also sending, as TasksUs has, sending swag. Often, giveaways that you send directly to your teammates, so they feel when wearing hoodies, so they can decorate their home office environment with the same branding as the team they're working in, simply to feel part of a team as wearing a jersey. So simple things like that you can do to improve, but definitely always collect feedback and listen to your teammates on what you can do.
That's great, thanks, Max. I guess it'd be interesting now I guess it's the time now to really start to think about some takeaways that we can offer our listeners on this really important subject. We're talking about outsourcing in Europe here, and when we talk about culture, and we've given some, I think some really interesting insights on how TasksUs, the culture and the well-being of our teammates is, of paramount importance to us. So I think we've got some really interesting insights into sort of how we've gone about that. But I guess for every business it's different. And as a takeaway, I would say, look for the partner that really aligns with your culture as a business. The employees that your partner are recruiting and retaining, hopefully, are an extension of your brand. They are the face of your brand to your customers. So, it's really important to find the partner that has the right culture for your business.
I would build up on top of that and simply say, obviously when you have two founders looking into partnering up together, and the main conversation, the first conversation, is all about culture, it speaks to the importance. But it's not only a top-down thing. You have to get the entire leadership and management team on board. And we, talked on some examples on how you can tie the performance, the KPIs, the motivation for your managers directly to the ESAT surveys and ENPS scores. So you're ensuring that with every decision that's being made, that you have this frontline first culture in mind, and you're thinking about the teammates first. So try and measure culture, collect feedback, and then make decisions based on data. Not everything is going to work, and it's not a one size fits all, but you're definitely having a good direction if you're talking to your teammates and collecting the information that they're giving you and making decisions based upon that. And then if you're doing that, the chances are you are a good employer and you are doing a better job in retaining your talent, your people. Now, if that is happening, you simply, throw marketing into the mix, and you are a well-branded employer on the market. Things start spreading with word of mouth, and then you're doing a better job recruiting your people. So it really starts with culture, but then goes really hand in hand with minimizing attrition, retaining talent, and enabling you to recruit. And then you throw in work from home in the mix, and a couple of quick wins, which we talked about. And I think that is a good direction that you can do, to face these challenges today.
Listening, which you've covered there, listen. We're not just talking about listen to your employees, listen to the market. So work from home is an example of that. Understand, explore those options that you're hearing about, because if your competitors are offering things that you're not, in terms of recognition, in terms of benefits, in terms of in terms of salary, in terms of working conditions, then you're going to be on the back foot. And if you're not listening to your existing employees exactly in the way that you've just said, then you're not really going to understand what's important to them and what's going to allow you to retain that talent. So yeah, absolutely, culture, listen. I think the podcast today is almost the bedrock on which those other elements are built. For my money, getting the right culture, which in turn allows you to recruit and then retain the best talent out there in the market for your customers, is almost the foundation on which everything else is built.
Yeah, definitely, Nathan. I think you nailed it here. You're not going to be competitive if you don't have the right people on board. And you're not going to be able, to offer all of these multilingual, various different skills, servicing different business lines across various countries and cultures in Europe, if you are not able to retain and recruit the right talent. So it definitely is the bedrock, and then speaks to the last two episodes that we've discussed.
I'd like to thank you all for listening to us. Thank you, Max, for joining us from Croatia, or joining me from Croatia. Thank you again to our listeners for tuning into this episode of CX Plus You. If you enjoyed this episode, follow us on Spotify to catch the next one. It won't be me and Max, but it'll be someone potentially far more interesting. So, keep your eyes and ears peeled. You can discover more about TasksUs by visiting our website, taskus.com, and following us on social channels on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Till then, this is Nathan.
And this is Max saying, have a ridiculously good day.